District Board of Directors. It is January 19th at 7:32 p.m. Could we please have a roll call?
Okay. Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Decker?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
Director Sofke?
Here.
Holman is not present.
Yeah, and I'll just note that Rick's not able to join us tonight. Okay, let's see. So first up on the agenda, we have, President's statement. You know, I've been dealing with water going places it shouldn't so much that I don't have any thoughts on this other than I hope everybody's safe and as dry as possible. And that, no, I will say this. We've had staff and crews working extremely hard over the past 2-3 weeks, working very, very hard. And they've done so with great effect and with a lot of safety. And we really appreciate the work that they do. So let's see. Now we'll turn for oral comments for items that are not on the agenda. Let's start. See, I've got Clemens' hands first, Catherine's hands second.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to point out an issue with our rain gauge that we started to notice with the December 31 and January 1 rainstorm. I actually think that it started just a couple of days before the rain gauge clogged. That's due to the high winds and the trees that are in the area where the rain gauge is. It's a bucket style rain gauge. It filled the bucket for the very first time due to the amount of rain that we got. So the current readings on our rain gauge, the current total on our rain gauge does not reflect reality. So we have taken a couple of steps here. The first one is our hydrologist will provide an estimate looking at other rain gauges on the amount that we think spilled to correct as best as we can the rainfall total for the water year. We also mounted a second rain gauge on the Alta Vista 2 tank, and we plan to switch over probably with the new rain year. So we have 2 rain gauges running in parallel right now that essentially one as a safety, as a police rain gauge, checking on the other one. It's not online, but the plan is to switch with the next water year to the Alta Vista tank number 2. It's a better location. There is not as much tree shading. We're also planning to install a second online gauge a little further up on our monitoring well above the Alta Vista well in that area, so that we have a dual system running at all times. Thank you.
No, thanks, Clemens. Let's go to Catherine. And if anyone else wants to speak, please raise your hand.
Thank you. I wanted to point out the editorial in the Half Moon Bay Review about paying attention to infrastructure, starting with the fact that what's called a sinkhole on Highway 92 is not technically a sinkhole. It's more and then Clay goes into talking about a lack of maintenance. I would point out that for Sam and the other member agencies, the break in the line in the Sam high pressure pipeline in Montara, named the Valimar pipeline, sometimes the Montara pipeline, was identified in 2009 as needing replacement. So there have been issues that have caused it not to get taken care of. And one of them is a lawsuit that we've all been spending lots of money to defend ourselves and our systems on. and a different district has been spending a lot of money to attack us and try and make us pay their bills. It's another longer story, but that money could have and should have been spent on infrastructure repair. And I'm hoping that it's not a problem from Sam. Sam does put forward things to the work that needs to be done, but there are certain members on the board that choose to wait and take the "it's not a problem until it's broken" attitude. When we're discussing this later tonight, you can see what that is. But I would recommend that you read Clay's article, because it also has to do with the drainage and the people who are getting flooded and all of that. The county has known that we have drainage problems here for a very long time. I worked on a committee when I was on MCC for a number of years, and the county's attitude at that point in time, and it still is we will allow development to go uphill, change the drainage, put a whole lot of impervious surface down, and then the folks who are most threatened by the flooding need to pass some kind of funding mechanism in order to fix the problem that we caused. I think that's wrong. But anyway, now the rain stopped for a week, so let's just pick it up and move from there and get things fixed.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. All right, I didn't see any other raised hands, so let's move to the consent agenda. Does any board member wish to pull anything for further consideration, or can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make that motion.
Okay, so a motion by Peter. Can we have a second, please?
I'll second. Bill can have it.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I was going to give it to Bill. Welcome, Bill. This is my first opportunity to sit in a meeting with you. Welcome very much. Thank you for stepping into public service in this role.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to actually sitting in an actual chair with you in an actual room. I don't count pixels as the same thing, but
I hope we don't
appreciate it. We're halfway there.
I hope we don't have to share a chair. Room maybe, but chair.
And you know what I mean.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented in the agenda. Tracy, could we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes.
Director Salke?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Let's move to new business. Item 1, review and possible action concerning remote meetings during emergency conditions under Government Code Section 54953 of the Brown Act.
Thank you, Scott. This is our standard item since quite some time now. Essentially allowing ourselves to hold this meeting remotely. This is talking about this current meeting and any other meeting that we would have in January. We will have to bring this up at the first meeting in February again to make a similar decision. Recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the Board of Directors of the Montara Water and Sanitary District under Government Code Section 54953 of the Brown Act during existence of state of emergency conditions related to the COVID-19 pandemic. With that, I also want to say that we have actually an agenda item up discussing about how to bring this back into in-person meetings later this evening. Thank you.
Okay, so I see a hand from Bill. Let me go first for public comment. Any members of the public? Not seeing any. Let's go to Bill then.
This is just a note. I'm happy to go along with this, for the next few months or something. But everyone who's talked to me knows that my own personal number one agenda is to get us back in person. Right now, I might be the first scientific experiment on what it means to be sworn in virtual space and operate in virtual space. But I know for a fact that you guys got to sit in the same room together for years, if not decades. And everything I know about human interaction is that it really requires proximity for the human residents to take in. So I know we need to be back in the same room, and exactly how that's going to happen, we can talk about over the next few months. But that's all.
Okay, thanks, Bill. I see Greg.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was slow on the trigger there. I was going to bring this up under MCC reports, but we've discussed this at the MCC. The majority is clearly in favor of continuation of Zoom meetings, especially for council members with immunocompromised family members. And I today forwarded an email. Claire had already done this, but I forwarded an email to our council, Tim Fox and Ray Muller, asking for their advice on how to proceed. The next step will be about a week from now to send it to Governor Newsom, Senators Becker and Berman, and so on. I've provided some health background information. So I personally feel strongly about this, as do several other members. I brought this up at the SAM meeting. I believe Catherine knows that. And the general reaction among the other members in Grenada and Half Moon Bay was, oh, that's a good idea. Let's write a letter. And there's some councils of different agencies and stuff who were going to work together. So I also copied the SAM board members today on the email I wrote. So I'm going to pursue this all the way to the state because I'm concerned that the future operation and viability of the Midcoast Community Council is threatened if we do not get an exemption on health grounds, just as you would for, let's say, an ADA or a disabled person. So that's what we're doing. There are also candidates who are extremely qualified for the vacant council seats who are reluctant to join because of the health issues. So it's a big deal for us. It could even be a fatal deal if it isn't fixed.
Thank you, Greg. And yes, I received a copy and I've read through your letter. You cover a lot of ground. Thank you very much for putting that together. Let's go to Catherine.
Thank you. I could see even doing one meeting a month in person and one meeting a month Zoom if we're going to be doing that way. The public has a chance to come and interact if they want to. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of empty space and empty seats. We only ever had one or two visitors anyway, and we've gotten far more participants by using Zoom than not. But it occurs to me this is a requirement by the state government, but they don't provide health insurance for me. And for the folks who are on MCC, you don't even get a stipend. Not that the stipend I get from MWSD would cover much, even in way of medications, if I came down with one of these terrible diseases. And there is flu going around. There's now something from China called white lung, and there's the other various things. I think that this needed more consideration than reflex from the government, but I noticed that fairly often our great legislators require special district boards and city councils to do things that they don't do. They get full health insurance, by the way, if they're in Sacramento. We who are doing the public service for no money don't get that luxury. So I think it will be interesting how this works out. I have mixed feelings. I agree with Bill. I like meeting with people in person, and maybe once a month would be adequate, and we can reduce our risk by doing Zoom meetings for the rest of the time. I would like to see committee meetings held by Zoom. And I would like to see staff and consultants who come in attend by Zoom. It's a great savings for the district by not having to pay consultants to drive in and take time away from their day. It's a long drive to get here for some of them. And the other board members at SAM were pretty much in agreement. They really don't want to attend board meetings. Some of them have immunocompromised family members or selves, and they're concerned about this. Thank you.
Okay, let me just remind us all that this item is just giving us authorization to conduct the rest of the meeting tonight. So we do have item 8 where we can go into this in much more depth. With that, I'll go to you, Bill, for a second go, but let's remember item 8 is coming up.
I tried to not make this into a detailed discussion, but since other people have put in details, I want to at least mention which ones I'm working from. A cost-benefit analysis which analyzes the benefits without the costs is useless. No one of you, I think, has made any quantitative measure of what is lost by going to Zoom. I have. I'm co-author of one of the only paper in the world which does that. And it says that there's a ratio of about 1,000 to 1 to 1,000,000 to 1 lost from digital interaction over in person. So I'm looking forward to quantifying the trade-offs, but I'm certainly not saying I like it. I'm saying as a scientist, this is just as real as water quality. And with that, I'll leave it.
All right. Let's see. I'm looking for a motion. Do we have the motion or?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Thank you. We have a motion from Catherine, second from Peter. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Slater Carter,
Aye.
Director Salke.
Aye.
All right. The motion passes. We can meet. Thank you. Let's go to item 2, review and acceptance of the June 30, 2022 GASB 68 actuarial evaluation. And I sure hope we get a definition of GASB for our viewing audience.
Thanks, Scott. GASB is Governmental Accounting Standard Boards, and GASB 68 requires us every year, since we have a defined benefit plan, to look at essentially the how it's doing, how it's performing. We usually receive this report. It's required so that we can perform our audit, get our audit in order. This is not an action item, so this is something that the board simply receives, and we will work with these numbers. But we have the luxury tonight to have Mary Beth Redding and Catherine Moore from Foster & Foster, who actually prepared the report, in attendance. So I'm going to ask them to tell us a little bit what's actually in it, what it does, and how are we doing, Mary Beth?
Okay, thank you, Clemens. So I have Catherine Moore from our office here, who did a lot of the work on your report and has for years, and also Braylene Scott, who's a new member from Foster & Foster. And I was going to ask them just to turn on their cameras and say hi. Hello.
Hello.
And there's Braylene, just so you can see the people who did the work.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm going to, if I can, share my screen, put just a couple pages up of the report and spend just a minute or two so you as a board know what's going on in this report.
Should be, oh, yes.
Okay, hopefully you can see the GASB 68 report. Catherine, tell me if not.
We do.
Good. So this is a calculation required under the accounting standards. It measures the assets and the liabilities of your pension program in the exact same way that every other pension plan in the country is, to provide comparable results that go into your financial statements. So I'm just going to give you a really quick summary. This is going into your June 30th, 2022 financial statements, but all the calculations have been as of June 30th of 21. That's important to remember because of the assets of the plan are an important part of this calculation. And as of June 30th, 21, if you can remember, a year and a half ago, investments had done really well, and we were very happy with all the numbers. That's all changed by June 30th of 22. But even though this is going into your 22 financial statements, it's really measured at June 30th of 21. Okay, so we have to go back in time. And at that point in time, things were great with your pension plan. The liabilities, which is the value today of all the benefits, pension benefits we expected to be paid out in the future, was just over $1 million. And you had $1.2 million in assets. So the plan was 119% funded. That's the long and the short of it. There's a lot of other sort of accounting calculations that are reported, but the major focus will be that the plan was very well funded at June 30th of 21. June 30th, 22, which we'll see next year, will be different results. We think will be more like about 95% funded, but still, very, very good. I am happy to answer questions on this item, but I think that's about all you probably want to know.
Okay, I'm having trouble seeing all the attendees. Here we go. Does anyone have any questions? Please raise a hand. Not seeing any. Let me thank you, Mary Beth and Catherine and Braylene. Thank you for your work. This is very important to keep an eye on, and your professional eye on this is, we really value this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're not done yet. We have the next item too, I think. So
okay.
You're not rid of us.
Oh, well, I'm glad for that. I'm just having to get the agenda back up. And where did my agenda go?
If you could stop sharing screen, Mary Beth.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Item 3, review and possible action concerning receipt of the June 30, 2021 actuarial evaluation and adjustments to contribution rates.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to introduce briefly that this is essentially the 2-year look of the contribution rates to the defined benefit plan. And every 2 years, we follow the recommendation of our actuarials. And so with that, I'm just going to hand it over directly to Mary Beth again. Thanks.
Thank you again, Clemens. And I'll go back and bring up my sharing. So this is the report I just talked to you about for like 10 seconds was accounting. And I know accounting is very important, but we really spend a lot more time thinking about the funding of the plan and how much money needs to go into it. And so there's a lot more meat in this report that I'd like to run through briefly for the board. Okay. You provide a retirement plan for district employees that is really the one benefit formula allowed under current state law for new hires. There's a pension plan that's 2% of people's final pay times the number of years they've worked with the district. Since 2015, that's provided as a benefit that's paid monthly to retirees once they retire. So it's a defined benefit plan. It's not like a 401k that you may be more familiar with, but it provides a promised benefit. And because of that, there is some risk involved. The district needs to set aside money that will grow to be enough to pay benefits as promised. Okay. So our job is to do the calculations to say how much money should be going into this fund so that enough will be there to pay retirement benefits. Every 2 years, we do evaluation. We look at the number of employees and retirees and do calculations to see what we think the benefits will be worth. We use a bunch of assumptions. The most important one is that we assume the fund is going to earn 6.25% on average in the future. That's based on the particular fund run by an organization called PARS. We lowered our assessment of what we think future earnings will be a little bit since the last valuation, just to take into account market conditions being lower. Well, most of the other assumptions we look to CalPERS to tell us things like how long do California public employees live, what ages do they tend to retire at, and things like that, because your group is too small for us to do a lot of statistical modeling on. And so based on that, I'm going to skip all the way down and say that when we look at the plan assets, again, as I just mentioned before, 2021 was a great year. The plan had $1.2 million of assets. And in 2022, which we're reflecting in this, it had dropped down to $1.1 million. So losses during the year. Actuaries do this thing called smoothing. We're figuring long-term averages when we look at your liabilities. And so we try to make a comparable average smooth number of the assets just to minimize some of the day-to-day fluctuations and get a better apples to apples comparison to set the contribution rates. So on that basis, the numbers are going to look a little bit different than reporting. As of June 30th of 2021, as we measured, the liabilities were $1,034,000. The assets on this smoothing basis were $1,082,000. We didn't take into account all the assets. We smoothed them a little bit. The plan was still 105% funded. When we look forward to 2022, we're smoothing again. We didn't take into account all of the losses, and it's still 103% funded. So the plan's really in very good shape. The only number that really applies to you is this number called normal cost, which is the cost or the value of benefits that employees are earning every year. The California law right now requires that be contributed to the plan every year. So you can't take credit for the excess money in the fund. You always have to pay the normal cost, $63,000. So when we calculate that as a rate of pay, what we recommend for the next year is that the next 2 years is that employees should be paying 7.75% of covered earnings. Covered earnings does have a dollar limit on it, and most importantly, doesn't count bonuses and things like that. So that is the same rate they were paying in the past, 7.75%. Mostly due to rounding and the rounding rules about when things can change, the employer recommended contribution is up a little bit to 7.3% of pay. And that's, we've calculated that to be based on total payroll just to make it easier for the district to administer. But even so, it is pretty much a 50-50 cost split between the employees and the employer, except for rounding. The total contribution being about $63,000 a year for the next 2 years. The summary again is that the plan is in great shape. It's very well funded. It's being managed well, and there's not a lot more to say about it because things are going well. That is the end of what I wanted to share with you. Are there questions?
I want to just add a little bit that I think I want to make it clear again that we're looking backwards. So the recommendation is really to increase from 7.01 to 7.30% to be retroactively implemented to 7/1/22.
Yes.
And so that additional amount needed to fund the increase is $1,322 for the 12 pay periods that we had during the last half year. And the staff recommendation is to accept the June 30, 2020 actuarial valuation report of the district and adopt the resolution that essentially adjusts the employer paid member contributions for the fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23. Thank you.
All right. So do you have questions? I don't see any raised hands. I'm not seeing any raised hands and not having a question myself. I have a question. Do we have someone who wishes to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, Peter, thank you. And can I have a second? I see a raised hand from Peter Medina, but let's get a second, and then we can have some discussion.
I can second.
I see I didn't hear you, Catherine.
I said I can second, but I didn't technically touch the raise hand on Zoom.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. You don't have to
You
do
don't,
it.
you don't need to.
Yeah,
I
that's
muted
okay.
because my dogs are having a debate.
Yeah. All right. We have a motion from Peter, a second from Bill. Thank you. Let's go to Peter Medina for your comment or question.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to be a fly in the ointment here, but the agenda item was prepared to go for the first board meeting in the month. Since then, we've had another pay period, and the amount that's recommended did change by about $100. Yes, I'm tracking it each pay period because for the retroactive, we're tracking as of 12 months. It's now at 12 pay period. We're now at 13 pay periods, so it goes up by about $103 a pay period as far as that 7.01 to 7.3%. So I just want to make sure that for the approval of the motion to have the exact amount, I don't want to go back and have another motion for just the 103.33 increase for the one pay period that we missed for the for the 115 pay period.
So let me put the question to Mary Beth. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. I haven't checked Peter's or Clemens's math, but it makes total sense to me that if you delay it another 2 weeks, it would be a little bit bigger.
Okay. So Peter, I thank you for raising this. I'm going to ask Peter and Bill, are you willing to amend your motion to take the corrected amount into consideration?
We'll do that, yes.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. So with the understanding, and let me just put a caveat on it, Clemens, if you could confirm that number before putting it into action, but it sounds like we've got a good basis to believe that's right. So with that, do we have any further board discussion? No? Tracy, could we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Director Shopke.
Aye.
All right. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you all for your hard work on this. I thought about becoming an actuary when I was in high school, and I found out how hard it was. And I thought I will be happy to leave that to people who think that's worth doing. It's a very tough profession, but it's super important. That I got when I was in high school.
Well,
Right.
Thank you very much. And we're happy to be able to assist as we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and for all the good work that you do. Let's go on to item 4, review and possible action concerning SAM presentation on recent rain events. I don't know if you all know, but we've had some rain recently.
Yes, thank you. We have Kishan Prativadi, the SAM general manager, in attendance tonight. And he was willing to essentially make a presentation about the recent rain events that affected the sewer authority mid-coast side very much. Kishan is also talking about, we were affected, the Montara collection system was also affected, not as bad, but Kishan is also going to talk about what we saw in our collection system. So I think, Kishan, this is already your screen that's up. Yeah, just take it away from here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Clemens. Yeah, for some reason, it's got a whiteboard and it says I cannot close it. Only the host can close it. Clemens.
Oh, Mary Beth, are you still sharing screen?
No, I unshared.
I'm co-editing Rob's whiteboard for some reason.
I see nothing.
I also see let me see, stop participants sharing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, I apologize to Rob, whoever.
Yeah, we were viewing Rob's whiteboard. That's what it said.
Well, I was experimenting because I didn't see a chat, so I hope I didn't blow up your meeting. But yes, I tried to put something, I tried to use it as a chat.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to make the presentation. And I do have my colleague Aaron also at the meeting today. And first and foremost, we at SAM normally do not blow our own trumpet. but I just wanted to make a special mention today that SAM staff has done a great job during the winter storms and managing the SAM plant, the SAM's assets outside the plant, and of course, the member agencies' assets, and of course, protecting the environment to the best extent possible. They worked all along from 31st, going on to almost 7 days or 10 days on a continuous basis, 24 hours. We had a 24-hour round the clock people available, and operations, collections, maintenance, all of them were working around the clock. And there was no New Year's Eve party or New Year's party, nothing. We were all at the plant or outside the plant taking care of stuff. And believe it or not, even the admin staff was fully involved, making sure that food and water and all the necessities are available for the staff who are working around the clock. I just wanted to make a special mention to our staff who took care of it very well. Now, I would like to share my screen, and so some of you may have attended the SAM board meeting or watched the meeting, so it might be a repeat for you. It's got the same slides and with an additional 1 or 2 slides, but for people who have not seen it, I thought I should bring in the same thing. So if I may share the screen, please. Oh, sorry, just give me a second. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So this is the storm event starting from December 31st, although I mentioned January, it was being presented in January. So the storm event starting from December 31st. The impacts of the December 31st storm event. So the first thing is I'm going to play a video, which gives you an idea about how the storm started with the Pilarcitos Creek flooding into the plant. You would probably hear some of our operators, the plant superintendent, Tim Costello, talking about it. Now, the entire plant, the operations, maintenance, and collections, which is managed by our Tim Costello, did a great job. And you can see how he has panicked. He has never seen such a thing in his past 34 years at SAM. I'm going to play the video for you. It's a very short video.
Okay, so this is new. We've never had this happen before. That's the creek right over there, and we are completely screwed at this point. Yeah, I don't know what to do. That water is just rushing in. There is absolutely nothing we can do. I don't know.
Okay, so this is the start of the flooding. And then these are just pictures of the flooding at various places in the plant. This is the creek flooding into the plant. The creek runs adjacent to the plant. And you saw the water coming into the plant. Just to give you an idea, at that point of time on December 31st at about 8:45 a.m., that was when the flooding took place, and the flow was about 2690 cubic feet per second. This is recorded by the gauge, which is at Half Moon Bay. And a couple of days later, on January 5th, when it actually subsided, the normal flows are about 300 to 400 cubic feet per second. So you can see how many times, literally 6 times, it is multiplied. And 2690 cubic feet per second was actually, it was flowing when it started coming into the plant. So
that's a log graph. That's a log graph, people. You need to multiply everything times 10.
Correct. Yep, this is a log graph. You're right, Greg. So this is the water where it started entering the headworks. And these pictures have been taken after the water started receding because it was too dangerous for us to go close by and take pictures. And this is actually flooded the electrical building. You will see those pictures in my next slides. But you can see the excuse me, the yellow box here is actually the flow meter, and that flow meter was actually the sensor actually got completely submerged, so it stopped measuring flow. I'll show that to you in my next slides.
Yeah, that sensor. When I first saw that sensor, I thought it was really interesting that it sits above the water.
Yeah. So this is the
flow from above the water. So to hear that it's under the water is unbelievable. That's wow.
Yeah. So it got totally submerged, and you see for this small length of time where it stopped recording anything. So when it last recorded, it was of almost 17.5 MGD. That is, of course, stormwater coming in from the creek, plus sewer coming in from everywhere. And therefore, in order to save the plant from further flooding, we had to actually turn off sewer coming in from the north. So we had to turn off Portola pump station as well as the Montara pump station. And let me walk you through the pictures of the flooding in the plant. This is flooding near the diesel storage. This is flooding around the mechanical building 1. Mechanical building 1 is our most critical building, which houses all our electricals. Aeration basin has just started filling up. This is flooding outside the electrical building. This is flooding inside the blower room. So the blower is the heart of the plant. You will see that in my next presentation. The blowers actually play an important role in maintaining the process of the plant. And we had water getting into the blower room. Fortunately, all the blowers got saved. We didn't have any malfunctioning of the main turbo blower, although we did have certain problems in this particular blower, which is a centrifugal blower. And this is a backup of one of our new turbo blowers. This is flooding inside the electrical room. So you see this is the highest flood level. So these pictures have been taken after the fact when we deemed it safe to go and check out the electrical room. See, the water has actually started coming down, but this is the highest level where it came to inside the electrical room. These are all VFDs which are mounted there, variable frequency drives, and you see the highest flood level, which has already gone a little high in the cabinet. And the arrow which shows the highest flood level is actually a transformer, and it has actually gone almost quarter of the height of the transformer. This is a pipe gallery. So the pipe gallery got totally flooded. So what happens is the pipe gallery has got electrical conduits coming into the, coming into the electrical room. And through those conduits, water entered into the panels, and a lot of panels was filled with water. This is a picture of the pipe gallery after the water receded. So you can see how what the change is. So much, literally this opening got flooded completely. So so what happened was, in order to save the plant, we had to shut off the Montara pump station and Valemar pump station, and Montara pump station and Princeton pump station. And because of which we had overflows at both these places. Due to the Portola pump station being shut off, the wet weather storage, which has about 400,000 gallons of storage capacity, that got full, and that overwhelmed and started overflowing at 3 locations. One was on the Burnham Strip, the other one was in the RV park, that is across the highway, and there was another Magellan Avenue, which is also close to that, and all this water went into the beach. All the untreated sewer went into the beach. And also at Montara pump station, once we switched off the Montara pump station, the Walker tank got overwhelmed, and there was also sewer overflowing into the ocean. So all this happened on the 31st of December. And on 1st January, we got a call from Clemens. One of his people was driving by and he saw that there was sewer coming in south of Valimar Street, right behind 140 and 150 Winky Way. And then Clemens called me and then I called our staff and staff went and had a look at it. And they found out, yes, it was sewer. And it basically, the pipe, the force main, there was a break in the force main, which is the Valimar force main. And this is a ductile iron pipe. And this was installed way back in the 70s or 80s. It's an old pipe. And that gave way. So this started at 6:30 a.m. on 1st January. It ended at this location, that is right where the leak happened. We were able to arrest it the same day at about 10:48 a.m. But we had to shut off because we shut off the Montara pump station. It stopped leaking there. But the Walker tank at Montara started filling up, and that started overflowing into the ocean. So we started digging up the pipe and opening up the expose the pipe and trying to find out where the leak was. And as we found out one leak and tried to fix it, we found that it was leaking downstream, and we found almost 4 locations where there were pipe breaks. And therefore, that went on for about 3 days. And it was raining hard during all those days. The contractor and Sam's staff were working down the clock and trying to see how they can get a solution. And then ultimately we decided to put an above ground bypass pipe, which is just a temporary pipe. And we were able to arrest the leakage at noon on January 4th. So right now the contractors are working on installing a permanent pipe, which is going underground. And very soon we'll be able to remove the temporary pipe, which has been installed above ground. And this probably would take about 2 weeks' time, but work has already started. Just to give you an idea, this is the spill which took place at Winky Way. And the resident there captured a lot of pictures. And these are the pictures in his backyard at 8:30 a.m., literally on January 1st. You can see sewer spills there all along. The crew had already, when we got the message, it was about 8:30, and we already got contractors by 11 a.m. A local contractor was good enough to come immediately and start work. So this is the work they started around 11 a.m. You see the backhoe and other things already in place that early. And this is a bypass pipe, which was installed on the 4th of January. You see the blue pipe, which is above ground. So this is a temporary pipe. It's not safe to leave this pipe above ground, although we've put barriers and all that. We are in the process of changing this pipe to underground pipe. This is the bypass pipe. So this is the overflow which happened. This is a manhole which is outside the Walker tank at Montara pump station. So this is the overflow which took place from that manhole and going into the ocean directly. So these are some pictures of the pipes. These are just 3 sections of the pipe, which is being shown, although there were about 4 or 5 sections. And these are the holes in the pipe which got exposed. So we had to remove these pipes and put in the temporary pipes. So the flood situation on December 31st and thereon required us to replace and repair a couple of equipments. The evaluation process is still going on, but at this moment, we've been able to gather all these things. These things are in the process of replacing or has been replaced. The force main, which is approximately 850 linear feet, that is being replaced. And at the plant, we lost digester recirculation pump. We lost a transformer because all these are because the water had got into those buildings and got into the motors and stopped work, and the motor stopped working. Breakers for the spray pump to the press, chains in primary sludge pump, wiring from MCC to the motor, digester mixing pump, primary sludge pump, belt filter press spray pump, and the list is endless. So we're just evaluating it one after the other. What happens is at that point of time, after the storm event, it works for some time, and then after a couple of days, then it stops working. Then we open it out, then we see that yes, there is moisture, and eventually it has started affecting the equipment. So after the fact, the storm event, there are a series of storms which are coming starting January 4th onwards. So we did a lot of preparation. Of course, we were in touch with SFPUC and the city of Half Moon Bay. They were keeping us regularly informed about the levels at the lake or the reservoir at Pillars Creek. And they did mention that it normally takes about 6 to 8 hours for the water to come from the reservoir to the plant in case there is an overflow at their reservoir. So we put a berm there by the creek and put sandbags, and that was done immediately on December 31st. We started work, and we were prepared for it. So this is all the preparation after 31st. Across the creek, we put sandbags everywhere. This is our digester building. Sandbags inside the room. This is the effluent building where we lost a transformer. Everywhere we had sandbags. This is inside the generator room. Yep, this is the mechanical building 1. We stacked sandbags there. All these things were done after the fact outside MB1. And these are the variable frequency drives were actually stored at the bottom shelf at one of our storage areas, and water entered and it soaked a lot of these boxes. The boxes were actually moved onto the top. You can see that in the second chamber, we moved it. Earlier, it was in this bottom chamber. So after that, now we've got our electrical contractors opening out each and every box and examining the VFDs, literally opening it, testing it, checking out whether they can be in use. And out of the 10 VFDs, we've got 10 VFDs stacked up there. We have evaluated so far 5 VFDs, and I believe there's only 1 which cannot be reused. We've been able to use 4 more, but we're in the process of evaluating. So this is a workshop room where we had stacked up the bags. Now let me come to what's happened at MWSD areas which we maintain, which we take care of on a contract basis. That is basically the collections and maintenance. Now, just to give you an example, and just to give you more clarity on the sanitary sewer overflows, which is called SSO. And these are primarily 3 categories. You have category 1, category 2, and category 3. Now, category 1 is the worst. And that is literally where the discharges of untreated or partially treated wastewater from an enrollee's sewer system reaches the surface water. No matter what the flow is, if it reaches the surface water and it reaches a municipal separate storm sewer system, these are not fully captured and not returned, then they are termed as category 1. Now, category 2 has, category 2 is basically where discharges of 1,000 gallons or greater resulting from system failure that do not reach surface water. Drainage channel, these are categorized as category 2. And finally, category 3, which is the lowest category. I know there should not be an SSO, but if there's an SSO, one always wishes that it should be category 3. So category 3 is something which does not get into any of these above categories. Category 1 or category 2, it doesn't go into the surface water. So at MWSD, we had 2 SSOs. The first SSO was on December 1st, and that was category 3. This was on 1065 Parkway at Moss Beach, where the resident reported sewage coming into their shower. Their home is actually at the lowest point of the area of Moss Beach. But only solution in order to prevent the sewer from getting into the resident was to remove their cleanout cap. They had 2 cleanout caps. The cleanout cap was removed, and we allowed the flow to go into their front yard and driveway. So that was the best solution available at that point of time. And we were able to prevent sewer from getting into the house. The other SSO is with the second one on December 31st, and this is a category 1. So this is happened at Cypress Avenue in Moss Beach, where the flow came out of a manhole, which is located right next to the drainage channel, which flowed to the creek and then eventually flows to the ocean. This SSO went on for approximately 7 hours, 25 minutes. This is literally the picture of the sewer coming out from the pig hole from the manhole there. And that was the manhole part of it. And we had a maintenance crew who were working at various lift stations, literally on a continuous basis for more than 7 days, because as you all know, we had a lot of power failure, power glitches at all, I think in all of Montara area and Moss Beach area. So whenever there's a power failure or when the generator kicks in, our staff has to go and verify that everything is working fine. It's not that just that they can sit at home and say that, oh, the generator is coming, so we don't have to worry about it. So when there's a change, they have to come visit the lift stations, make sure that everything is working fine. Now, what happened was that the pump number 2 at Valimar ceased due to power failure because there were power fluctuations, the power failed, so we lost a pump at Valimar pump station. The VFDs failed, the variable frequency drives failed at Seal Curve 2, Seal Curve 3, and Seal Curve 3, pump number 1 and pump number 2. Moss Beach distillery pump number 2 failed. So these things are ongoing. We've been having a lot of problems, but our maintenance crew is addressing that as and when it comes up. And yeah, we have on the maintenance, we have 2 maintenance persons, plus we have the third one who's a new recruit who's on training right now. But these people have been going checking out all lift stations and have not had any relief for 7 days. The time when you guys had power failure and power glitches, these are the things that were being attended to. So I guess that completes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions. And of course, we have our supporting staff, Aaron, as well as I'm sure Lieutenant Clemens will also pitch in as and when required.
I want to just start with adding a couple of things. The first one that we're in the process of asking the PUC for information about the releases from Stone Pine Dam that resulted to the flash flood. So hopefully there is going to be some information that we can share with the Sewer Authority Midcoast and the other member agencies going forward. The other, just in case the question comes up, we, of course, have 2 functions, sewer and water. I wanted to mention that our water staff experienced also many power outages, but we're well prepared to handle that through our generators. So staff was very active during that rainy period. We saw 1 leak that affected about 5 homes, and that was due to PG&E drilling, augering a hole for a new power pole, and they hit the water main. But that was handled within hours. Thank you. With that, back to the SAM item and any potential questions for Kishan or myself.
Well, I'm not seeing any hands, but so let me just start by saying Kishan and everyone who worked so hard. That's probably in all this time serving this community, I think that's the most extensive, consequential set of damaged things in the community. I mean, this was a big collection of rain events, and I'm sorry that you all had to go through all of that, but I'm grateful for your work. Okay, now we have hands. Let's start with Greg, and let's go to Catherine after that.
I don't want to beat things to death when I think there will be further analysis and report. So let me just first ask Kishan, will there be a written report prepared and estimates of the amount of sewage spilled, and about when will that be available?
Yes,
That include the money that you're losing, replacing things and all that.
yes. We are planning on bringing the, as far as the money is concerned, we are planning on bringing the costs involved in all the storm, due to the storm damage, probably in a February meeting, and tell the SAM board at the SAM board meeting as to how much expenditure we have incurred. We're just gathering, people have been sending us invoices, we're just compiling it together. That's number one. And the second part of your question, or rather first part of your question, is on the report on sewer spill. Yes, we are required to submit a detailed technical report to the Regional Water Quality Control Board within 30 days of the spill event. And we are working on that so that a comprehensive report will be available, and that can definitely be made public. Right now, we've just made some estimates, which we are working on, and we are submitted it to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So the initial regulatory requirement work has been completed, but once the complete technical report is available, we'll make sure that it will be made public to everyone.
Okay, the second part of this, I don't want to belabor, but you are all here aware that for the past year, I've been trying to identify the excess flows that were coming into the SAM plant from the spill. I don't want to say spill, the overflow at the effluent building on December 13th and 14th, 2021. And you're aware that we never got an explanation for something like 5 million gallons of excess flow. I asked for a report. You've even put it in your minutes, that Half Moon Bay supposedly prepared. I will just repeat the request that we get that report and that analysis. But I will mention that when I was there at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that meter, which had been submerged, was working, to my great surprise. It was showing a flow of 11.5 million gallons a day, and that's without the IPS.
Greg, can I ask you to be a bit more specific on what your assumptions are, where the flows are coming from? And
I can't tell you where the flows are coming from because that's the open question. But what I think we can do is analyze a time series of the flows and the condition of the various pump stations and try and isolate where the flows were and were not coming from. My understanding is the IPS flows were turned off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on December 30th. Am I right? Is it 30th? 31st. 31st. So that would imply that 11.5 million gallons was coming from somewhere other than the IPS. Okay, and so that's a pretty big deal. So I would just like to see an analysis on a timeline basis of where the flows were coming from. It might even be possible to estimate how much of that water came from the creek. And then when the creek stopped flooding, how much was coming from the rain and the storm. And when the rain stopped, how much was being released by the wet ground in ongoing drainage activities, and compare all that and try to get an idea where these flows are coming from. Because that, to me, there's more than one thing going on here. All right. Just my presumption.
All right. Let's go.
If I may respond to Greg.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Greg, yes, we are in the process of doing the analysis. We have all the data captured in SCADA, other than for a short period of time when we lost communication. But we can literally get minute by minute flows as to when it was shut off and how much flow was coming in from other service areas when we totally shut off flow coming from the north. Because what comes in would basically be from Frenchman's Creek and from San Pablo lift station coming in from the north, and the balance would be coming in from Half Moon Bay. So we can definitely estimate that, and we are working on that. It's going to take a little while because right now we're trying to assess the damage and working on so many other things. We will definitely do that analysis, it is going to be useful. And now on your first part of it about last December's flow analysis and what is being done by the other agency. I have that at the back of my mind to bring it up as one of our discussions at the engineers committee. We have a committee formed by engineers from member agencies, where we have engineers from MWSD, GCSD, and Half Moon Bay participating. That is primarily for the force main. That is being discussed. We already had one meeting last week. One more we are going to have tomorrow. But then we can bring up this also as one of our items where the engineers can assess the last year's scenario and determine where the flow is coming from, what happened to the extra, and do some analysis. So we'll bring it up in that committee. So maybe that will be faster and we'll get some answers there.
All right, let's go to Catherine. Thank you, Kishan.
You're welcome.
Catherine, the microphone.
I keep dropping in and out, and so I don't know. Anyway, first I want to thank the staff, top to bottom, at SAM and at MWSD. You guys are all awesome, and this coast side would not be as wonderful a place as it is without your dedication and positive attitude and just keeping things going. I keep telling you this, not to reassure myself, but to let you know how much you are appreciated. And it's not just me. I talk to people and they always tell me. My question, and Kishan, I want to thank you for bringing that 11 million gallons to the engineers committee. I hope we can get some solid answers out of that because that's a serious issue. But I wanted to know about the manhole blowout in Moss Beach. What caused that? Was it quantity of water? Was it pressure? Was it related to the system not working well because of power outages? Do you have any clues? And Barbara, thank you very much for sending that picture to Greg, who sent it to me and Clemens today, and we had Sam check it out. I do want to say to all of the public, when you're wandering around, and if you see a manhole with like finger holes in it or lift holes, let us know, because Sam is supposed to be putting rubber corks in those, and I'm sure they do, but they might get pried out because they bounce well or something. So we've got to keep a constant eye on that. And Greg, the other thing is we've got to work on the county on this drainage problem, because their stuff is getting in our sewers and then they want us to fix it. So, and we pay the fines for their stuff. They don't. So anyway, can you tell me more about what was going on with that manhole? This is the first time I have ever heard of a manhole blowing out like that in Montara or Moss Beach.
Clemens or Pippin, did you guys want to respond, or do you want me to respond on the manhole?
It was a direct result of the Weimar station shut off. Essentially, the pipe filled up and everything filled up, couldn't take it anymore. So that's the reason for it. We had no other choice besides letting it run. Clogging essentially that manhole or bolting it down would result in overflows inside of homes.
My other question is, if we had, Pippin, and maybe you can answer this too. If we'd had the extra 200,000 gallons at Portola, would that have been useful? Thank you.
Sure, Catherine. I do want to add and emphasize one thing Kishan mentioned in his presentation, but I want to reiterate it. is he worked, this wasn't the only agency to be having high water. And so all across Northern California, the emergency response teams and the available backup emergency pumper trucks were all in full use everywhere. But I believe Keishan was able to scramble at least 4 trucks that were running 24 hours a day. So as much sewage as we could possibly transport with trucks, physically putting it in a truck and driving it down the highway and dumping it into closer to the treatment plant so it could be treated. That was happening continuously. They just weren't able to capture it all because of the rain events. So I do want to reiterate that. I think, Catherine, if we had more Vector trucks available or pumper trucks, we might have been able to capture some of that flow. But as Keishan pointed out in the one private lateral situation, when there are these extreme cases, it's better to let some sewage go in someone's front yard and clean it up there than to have it back up into their house in these emergency cases. Obviously we don't strive for that. Our goal is to keep everything in the ground and moving forward. But Valimar does have the ability to bypass some of the sewage around through another lift station and take it up to the Walker tank in Montara, which is about 450,000 gallons of storage. That normally works, but with the storm event after storm event compounding day after day, we didn't have time to draw down those storage tanks. And when Sam did try to draw that down with all the pressure in the system, that was just too much for the pipe. And then with the leak, they couldn't draw down that pipe system at the normal rate. So the Portola tank would help, but if we can't get the sewage to Portola, it wouldn't help. So yes and no, but I really just wanted to point out the Vector truck scenario that staff was doing with their own time, 24 hours a day. And then they had contractors coming in from third parties as well.
Keishan or Hannes, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I'd like to, Pippin, thank you very much for bringing that thing of how we mitigated it. Yes, as much as possible, we try to mitigate discharge into the ocean by using these 4 Vector trucks, going back and forth, working all through the night. And it was hard for us to get vac trucks because everywhere in the Bay Area, there were spills and these Vector trucks were all in high demand. But we were fortunate to get 4 Vector trucks, and including ours. Ours was a small one though, capacity-wise, but still we were able to use that. And what we did was we sucked it out from the manhole outside the Montara pump station, and we drove it to a closest location, which was the Princeton pump station, because that doesn't get into this line of, it goes after the break. So we dumped it to the manhole there at Princeton pump station, and from there, it got into Portola and finally got into the plant. So, and at that point of time, Portola wet weather storage was not overwhelmed. We had enough capacity there. But yes, Catherine's point of having additional 200,000 gallons would have helped on during the spill on December 31st, because the wet weather storage tank got overwhelmed there, and we had spill only because that tank was overflowing at 3 locations, one on the Burnham Strip, then by the RV Park and by Magellan Avenue. All those could have possibly taken care of if we had additional 200,000 gallon storage at Portola.
And 400,000 would be better.
Yep.
All right. This is a lot to take in, but I really appreciate the breadth and depth of what you've presented. I know we could go into much more detail. I have a feeling we may in subsequent meetings. So thank you very much for coming and presenting this. For those of us who were dry inside, looking outside going, wow, it's really coming down. It's really good to be reminded just how hard people have to work to make sure that these things don't fail. And I will say that, yes, we had some failures. We suffered through some disaster, but we lost power. We lost internet. We lost cell phones, like completely gone. Water and sewer, our community was able to keep all that going, but largely through tremendous response from SAM and contractors and MWSD. It's a big group effort, but this is one area where there's some things we need to try to prevent in the future, but in terms of availability to the consumer in their homes, this was nice that this was these water services weren't part of the things that just had the abject failures. Are we ready to move on to the next item, the presentation of Sewer Authority of Mid-Coast virtual tour?
Right, thank you. This was the original idea the original reason for Kishan to attend one of our meetings. We planned this for the January 5 meeting that we had to cancel due to the rain events. This is really that the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side now offers a virtual tour in addition to the in-person tours that are offered and can be set up with Kishan at any time. Or there's a specific time window where this is available. But I think this is such a great tool and overview of the SAM system and the functions and the general understanding of secondary treatment plants that are essentially what is required right at this time. And so we asked Kishan to present this tour, this virtual tour. I just want to say that we actually went through a similar process last year and have a virtual tour that is available on our website. And I also put a link here into the staff report. With that, back to you, Kishan. Thank you.
Thank you, Clemens. Yeah, so as Clemens rightly said, we do have implant field tours also. And this is typically on the third Wednesday of every month. And people can call up and confirm that they're coming, or if that particular day is not convenient for them, they can always talk to us. We can always arrange for a tour individually on any day convenient to them. That is not a problem at all. So it's open now. Anytime you guys can come, although last year and before that, we had to restrict the tours because of the pandemic situation. But now I think we're past that. So we are open to in-house tours. We also developed this virtual tour. It's up on our website. We made some minor changes on our website and put it up. We also have something called as a story map. I'll walk you through that, which also gives you a detailed process by process mini tours. So I will go through this presentation. It's a short presentation. I think it's about 8 minutes or so. It first starts with a teaser, like a sneak preview of the tour. That's for a very short, maybe 15 seconds or so. And then it goes on to the plant tour. So I put both of them in the same video, although these have been put in different places. And the way we've done it is the sneak preview actually comes up on YouTube videos. When some of you might be watching YouTube videos in your areas, we have this sneak preview popping up, and which says that if you're interested, then you can go further and do the virtual tour. So I believe that is already popped.
I've actually seen it on YouTube.
Good, very good. So that's what it is, and we're trying to do public outreach as much as possible, let people know that this is what SAM is doing, and we'd like people to come and take a look at it and see what happens to your sewer. So let me share my screen and then go from there. Oh. I don't know why it's ain't show.
water goes down the drain, have you ever wondered where it ends up? Do you want to see what happens after you flush? Take Sam's online tour to find out. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast.
All the wastewater flow generated within SAM's service area is processed through the wastewater treatment plant. The influent flow rate is measured at the influent flow meter, also known as a partial flume. Measuring flow rates and tracking flow rate trends helps SAM adjust plant operations for greatest efficiency and service. The mechanical bar screens provide the first step of treatment by removing trash and solid debris from the incoming wastewater. Any debris larger than the half-inch screen openings is captured, removed with an automatic rake mechanism, and deposited into a waste bin. Twice a week, the waste bin is emptied and the solid debris is transferred to a local landfill. The influent pump station is home to 8 solids handling centrifugal pumps, capable of pumping all the wastewater that flows into the treatment plant. These powerful pumps lift the incoming flow 20 vertical feet so that the wastewater can flow by gravity throughout the rest of the treatment plant.
The grit chambers consist of 2 aerated tanks that circulate wastewater and allow grit particles to settle to the bottom by gravity, where they can be more easily removed. Grit includes heavy particles such as sand, coffee grounds, and other small particles that cannot be removed by the mechanical bar screens. The primary clarifiers are long rectangular tanks where the wastewater is allowed to slow down for gravity to take over. This step removes heavy sediment, such as soil particles, that are too fine for the bar screen or grit chamber to remove. These heavy sediments, also called sludge, sink to the bottom of the tanks and are mechanically removed by scrapers. At the same time, lighter solids such as fats, oils, and grease rise to the top, where they are skimmed off and discarded to the landfill.
Aeration basins are where the biological treatment of wastewater happens, which is one of the most critical steps of the wastewater treatment process. Over 1,000 fine bubble diffusers are installed on the floor of the basins, releasing thousands of cubic feet of dissolved oxygen into the wastewater stream. The oxygen-rich air is consumed by the aerobic microorganisms in the wastewater during its time in the aeration basin. Microorganisms use the oxygen for respiration as they feed on the nutrient-rich wastewater and naturally break down organic wastes into carbon dioxide. Once the wastewater leaves the aeration basins, it flows to the secondary clarifiers and is allowed to settle once again. The secondary clarifiers are circular structures, 85 feet in diameter and 14 feet deep. Similar to the primary clarifier, the secondary clarifiers have a large surface area that allows the flow to slow down so that settling can occur naturally. Sludge sinks to the bottom of the clarifiers and lighter particles float to the top, where they are removed by mechanical scrapers.
After the physical and biological processes of treating wastewater, the final stage is the chemical process of disinfection. The SAM plant uses 2 main chemicals. Both can be found in the chemical storage facility. These 2 chemicals are equally important to the wastewater treatment processes. The first is sodium hypochlorite, which is used to chlorinate and disinfect the treated wastewater. The second is sodium bisulfite, which is used to dechlorinate the wastewater before it's discharged into the Pacific Ocean. Sodium hypochlorite, similar to bleach, is added to the wastewater to disinfect germs, bacteria, and viruses as it flows through the chlorine contact tanks. Finally, the fully treated wastewater passes through the effluent pump station. SAM also recycles some of the treated wastewater back into the plant and uses it in a variety of treatment processes to reduce the use of potable water. This non-potable water is referred to as number 3 water. 3 vertical turbine pumps are responsible for making sure the treated flow leaves the plant and travels safely to the outfall pipeline for discharge into the Pacific Ocean. The wastewater is dechlorinated with sodium bisulfite before being discharged through the ocean outfall, a 20-inch diameter pipe 50 feet underwater and 3,000 feet away from land. Protecting the marine environment is a top priority for SAM.
Sludge that is removed from the treatment process in the secondary clarifier is dewatered in a rotary drum thickener, which slowly rotates while liquid drains out. This processed sludge then moves to the anaerobic digesters. The sludge and scum from the primary and secondary clarifiers is pumped to the anaerobic digesters to feed anaerobic microorganisms. The anaerobic microorganisms here prefer an oxygen-free, heated environment while they break down biodegradable solids and kill harmful pathogens in heated digester tanks. The digestion process kills harmful pathogens and reduces the volume of organic solids. One of the byproducts of this process is methane, also called biogas, which can be used to generate electricity for use at the wastewater treatment plant and beyond. The biogas is also burned to generate heat for keeping the digesters warm, which promotes the biological process. Boilers are heated to 95.3 degrees Fahrenheit with the biogas generated in the digester. The heat exchanger allows heated boiler water and digester sludge to pass through, heating sludge to 95.3 degrees Fahrenheit. Final treatment of the solids collected from wastewater is achieved with the belt filter press. Fully processed sludge from the anaerobic digesters is now squeezed between perforated conveyor belts and large rollers to remove excess water. The resulting product is a dried cake of biosolids that can be reused at certain compost facilities.
The electrical room houses the treatment plant's motor control centers, also known as MCCs. The MCCs control all of the treatment plant equipment, such as pumps, motors, lights, and critical control systems. To ensure uninterrupted service to the community, SAM maintains an on-site diesel engine-driven emergency generator. In the event of a power failure, the generator will turn on and produce enough electricity to power all of the essential treatment processes. These 4 125 horsepower turbo blowers provide aeration to the secondary treatment of wastewater. This is the heart of the entire wastewater treatment plant. These turbo blowers must run constantly to ensure that the microorganisms in the aeration basins remain alive and healthy.
I'll just show you the story map. Give me a minute, please. What I was mentioning. So this is a story map which we've developed. That's also available on the website. So it gives a map of SAM, the service areas, gives a little summary of SAM, then it's an interactive map. So you have these several stages which we saw, primary, secondary, and this in various stages in the process. So each one of them is separate here, like a story. So we talk about preliminary treatments. So it talks about the first stage, which is preliminary treatment, and you can see only the preliminary treatment part of it. So you can go step by step and go, as you go to 2, then you can actually go to this map here, click on 2, then it takes you here and gives you a summary of this treatment and also shows you the video of that particular treatment. So that goes on like a story, each process. So you could also do this. This is also available on our website. So I just thought I'd share this also with you. Thank you very much. And that finishes my presentation. Here to answer any questions or anything, what was required.
Well, I've taken the physical in-person tour a few times. I saw things tonight that I've never seen before. I really like this.
Yep. So we encourage everyone to come and have an on-site tour.
Since I actually saw it on site twice, I can't imagine getting into the video as much. It's much more fun in person.
Well, there's things in the video that I think wouldn't be good to expose the general public to because of some safety concerns. But it looks like Keishan, you and the production crew figured that out. Catherine.
Yeah, I think they both are supplementary to each other. Sometimes when you're doing the tour in person, you don't see specifically what the what the video is pointing out. And after I saw the video, when it was shown at the SAM meeting, then walking around, some of the things made more sense to me. They'd been explained to me, but to have the explanation from the video really helped. I hope people will take advantage of this. Maybe we could put a link to it, Clemens, on our website.
Yes, sure. Thanks for the recommendation.
I see Pippin's hand.
I just like to point out that I think this is a great opportunity to reach out to kids in the community, and I'm excited to share this with local schools here as a great way. Kids love to see this kind of stuff. I think that the interactive map, all the kids, have, most of the schools, they've got a Chromebook or an iPad or something, so they could dial this up and in 15 minutes, they could learn a lot.
Yeah,
especially before they come to the high school, kids have routinely gotten a tour at SAM. So this is, as I said, this is a good preview before they come.
Yeah, I think it can do a lot to really illuminate and inform, so the in-person can be even more interesting. I just, for myself, I did a real double take after the camera pans out over the outfall, and I'm like, oh man, that was a lot of good stuff. And then it's like, and by the way, solid material, and it's like, oh yeah, there's this whole other part. So as familiar as I am with it, it was kind of a fun little bit of whiplash there. Kimberly Williams.
Thanks, Scott. I just wanted to say thank you. I think this was a great presentation, and I really like the video. And I just wanted to let you know from a member of the community that there's a positive reception to it. And I think Pippin's idea to take this out to the schools is awesome. Totally support that. I think it's a great idea. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. I don't believe we have any action on this. Any further comments or questions? If not, then I'd like to thank Keishan and everyone who's helped support you in getting all this material to us. Again, you have our heartfelt thanks for all of the hard work this month, dealing with extraordinary weather and a complex system. And I think I want to reiterate, Montara wants to work very hard to support SAM to have the resources it needs to effectively do the job that SAM has signed up to do.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go to item 7. Review and possible action concerning request for proposal for auditing services.
Yeah, folks, this is.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead. I missed item 6. Had highlighted and I read the next one. Review and possible action concerning election of officers and committee assignments for 2023.
Yes. Thanks, Scott. So we provided the chart for the current positions and the committee assignments for each board member. And the empty space needs to be filled now, which are essentially the assignments for the current standing ad hoc committees, as well as for, of course, for the board of directors and the agency representations. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So what I typically do here is I open the floor to the board members to see if there's any suggestions, and I will wait to see if there are any suggestions.
I'd like to make a comment that I hope Peter wants to stay as treasurer.
I do, yes.
Oh, good.
I'm glad you asked that question, Peter. I'm stoked to hear your answer on that. For the people who haven't tuned in before, Peter does an exemplary job, and I mean exemplary job of serving as treasurer.
I, for my part, don't want to be on anything mission critical for probably the first year, but I can stand in and be on all the things I might be good at in the first place.
That's very much in keeping with the tradition of the board, is that we give people the opportunity to kind of learn the mechanics and the vocabulary and, you know, some of the interesting issues and how we tend to come at it and kind of get your sea legs. And so I really like your suggestion. We want to give you a lot of exposure so you can start soaking all this stuff up. I'm sorry, Catherine, you were saying something.
No, one thing I'm thinking is, Bill, that because all of our meetings are open public meetings, when we have them, even the committee meetings, you're more than welcome to sit in and listen. You can't say anything. But that's why with Zoom, the off mic thing is so easy. But they are all public meetings, and you learn a whole lot doing that. So I would recommend that. I'm wondering, Scott, would you like to remain as president?
I'm certainly willing to continue serving.
You've done a good job, and I think that you're doing some
I think the audio cut off so that my head didn't get too big. So
I'll watch out for her if she rejoins us to let her in.
On the phone, maybe?
Yeah. So while we're waiting, she knows all this stuff. So I'm just going to go over for the public and for Bill, soak all this in. So we've got positions for president pro tem, which you might know is like vice president or vice chair. The president pro tem stands in to run meetings and such when the president's not available. We also have a position for secretary and then secretary pro tem, and that one has some history on it. In order to conduct the business of the agency, sometimes we need people to sign as secretary. So what we normally do is we take whoever's left and make them alternates. And that's coming in awfully handy. We also have the position of treasurer. And then for agencies where we appoint representatives, we'll do kind of the same thing. We'll put a person into a role, and then we'll put everybody else as alternates. So we have the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast representatives, and we do 2 for that. The California Special Districts Agency, we have 1 member for that. The Aqua, I don't even remember what the acronym stands for. It's a water thing.
Association of California Water Agencies.
Thank you.
Best acronym ever.
Thank you. Wait, the Association of California Water Associations? Agencies?
Water agencies.
Okay, that's a good one. So 1 seat on that. Then we have committees. We have 2 different kinds of committees. We have standing committees and we have ad hoc committees. And standing committees are required to be publicly noticed and open. The ad hoc committees can be if we wish, but the standing committees tend to have kind of a standing agenda and regular meetings. So there we have budget and finance and another one for personnel. And then we have ad hoc committees. They meet as needed, recycling and solid waste, outreach and newsletter, legislative, strategic plan progress, connect the coast, and Recology Pillar Ridge. So those are the ones we're going to get through tonight. Do we have Catherine back? I don't see Catherine.
He was here for a second.
You know, honestly, after everything we've gone through this month, I'm amazed that any of this tech is working right now. Especially for Catherine. It's been a challenge in the back half of Montara. Hi, Catherine.
Now you're mute.
Hello again.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, since the storm, my phone, my lines have not been quite the same. I was going to say, I'm wondering if we would like to make Rick as vice chair. Vice president. President Pro Tem, and I would like to be secretary.
And then we would have, let's see, for Secretary Pro Tem, I remember there's a restriction on who can serve as a secretary. And I think one of the roles cannot serve as secretary. I think that's the treasurer. Is that correct? Anyone remember? I think the way that we had it, that we have it right this minute, Jim and Catherine were the alternates to Rick being the secretary, and then Peter was the treasurer. And so we had, it's very common that the president and secretary have to sign things. And so you don't want the same signature on both lines. And then I think for some reason, we also didn't want the treasurer to serve in that. But with 5 people, it's 1 designate and 2 alternates. So I think that works okay. That seems to be the pattern we landed on. So Catherine, you're proposing me as president, Rick as president pro tem, you as secretary. That would put Bill and I'm drawing a blank. That would put Bill as an alternate, as a secretary pro tem alternate, and then Peter as treasurer. If I have that right.
I'm wondering if we can't have everybody as secretary pro tem.
I think the president or the treasurer. There's one of those that cannot. It's not allowed under the.
Well, the president is already signing, delivering the first signature on the documents. The second signature is delivered by the secretary. So we could have all 4 other directors, secretary pro tem, and in
all three others. President, secretary, and then 3.
Yes, president, secretary. Yes, essentially all 4 signature ready. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right, and that's a good goal. All right. Well, that's what's penciled in right now. And I want to see if anyone has any other thoughts on that.
Sounds good to me.
Let's vote on it.
Okay. All right. So with that proposal, we'll take that and then we'll go to the other items, the other positions in a minute. Let's go ahead and Tracy, if you could do a roll call for us.
Could you please review exactly what we're voting on right now?
Happily. So President, myself, President Pro Tem Rick Lohman, Secretary Catherine Slater Carter, Secretary Pro Tem, that would be you. Boy, I'm trying to do this in my head. That would be of the five of us, not Scott and not Catherine. So that would be
okay.
Yeah, you and Peter and Rick. Okay, and then Treasurer Peter Decker.
All right, thanks.
Okay, sorry, I stumbled over that, but I think we got the gist. If we're clear on that, then Tracy, if you could do the roll call, please.
Okay. Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes.
Director Salke?
Aye.
Oh, that's right. And that's our 4 votes tonight. Okay, so those appointments are made. When we change president, we sometimes have to ask ourselves, do we want to change over running the meeting right after that vote? But tonight, it's an easy one. Well, let's go to agency representatives. For Sam, I'm going to note that Rick is asked to step back from Sam. And Catherine, are you interested in continuing to work on Sam?
I'm chair of SAM this year, yes.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're not running away from that responsibility. The SAM position, by the way, for anybody who hasn't ever tried it, is it's real work, and I'm super grateful for volunteer public servants who step up to that. I've done it for many years. I think many of us here have, and I just want to say thank you for the ones who are continuing in that. So now we need to select another member to be a SAM representative, and then our tradition is to leave everybody else as alternates so they can be called upon as needed when someone can't be there for a meeting.
I would like, Peter, if you would be willing to do that. You've stepped in recently and you sat in on the finance committee meeting. I think we would make a great team. And the only thing I'm worried about is between you and me, we could totally run Sam.
Sorry.
What about Bill? What is Bill interested in?
I'd be happy to be an alternate, but it feels like I should probably get used to dealing with the water district first. And I literally have not sat in a room with you guys yet. You have no idea how remote I really am.
All right. So it sounds like, Bill, that you want to take a minute to do some learning. This is an admirable thing. And I would suggest, as you do this learning, as much observation on SAM as possible is good. We always get a SAM report from our representatives, but there's nothing like observing the actual meetings if you get the opportunity. It does take a good bit of time, but it's worth it. Well, okay. It sounds like we have consensus on Catherine and Peter for SAM, and then the rest of us as alternates. CSDA, got Rick in that role. I think Rick wants to step back from the committee work. So who would we put up for CSDA? Again, everyone left as an alternate, but we do need to put somebody in that seat.
I would be happy to do it. I did it for many years, and between that and paying attention to LAFCO, There's some stuff going on at LAFCO that is concerning. From what I've been told, just as an aside, LAFCO is doing a municipal services review to try and see if they can't find an excuse to shut down the Harbor District as a special district. Yeah. As if they do such a good job running things. But anyway, that's said.
So to get us through this, it sounds to me like you're volunteering for that position. And I don't see anyone else champing at the bit for that. So then let's go for Aqua member. Peter, you've been serving as the alternate. Is this of interest to you?
Not really, no.
Clemens, no. I mean, we have some ex officio members that I'm wondering if we could dragoon them into service. Jim, it's good to see you, Jim.
That'll teach you to show up, Jim.
The Aqua thing sounds like something weirdly enough I might be qualified for, merely because it sounds like it's more giving information to you than it is voting on anything official. I just don't want to be wielding any sort of a large cudgel until I know how to use it. But if being on Aqua were to help me learn, that would work.
I would recommend it. And I would also say, don't let it scare you off. Aqua has an interesting perspective. We're a little teeny tiny driblet in the Aqua pond. And then there's Orange County Water and SFPUC and Sacramento and giant water agencies. And so you will really enjoy going to the conferences and seeing how these big guys think and how different it is from the realities on the ground of a little district.
I certainly believe that I would enjoy going there. The real question for you voting is whether you want a loose cannon like me talking there.
Sure, why not?
Well, let's see. You said something about wielding a big cudgel, so I'm already afraid. But I think it's a real opportunity to meet people working at the large scale, but it's also a real opportunity to meet and build coalition with other small agencies. And there's good work to be done by finding people of like minds and similar problems.
But my point is that I wouldn't actually be voting on anything. I'd merely be meeting people, right?
Well, typically, if there's an issue that requires voting, what we typically do is we get the sense of the board, and then the rep is the one who might cast a vote. But it's usually in after consultation with the board. That's our normal way of doing it.
Yeah, usually it's workshops and things and learnings, legal updates, those kinds of things, because there's a board that runs it and makes the official decisions for Aqua.
So I see a hand from Michelle. Let's take a comment from the public.
Welcome, Bill. I'm Michelle Dragonan with Coastside Buzz, and I kind of like watch over things. And if you want to go to Aqua with somebody that will really blow your mind, call up John Mueller at CCWD.
Okay. First, I should figure out whether I'm going to Aqua, and then once I'm getting ready to go there, I should check in and figure out who to talk to, right?
Yeah, come contact me, and I'll have a conversation with you.
Beautiful.
Michelle, it has been so far Bob Feldman, who has traditionally represented CCWD at Aqua.
John reports on it all the time. I think he might go just for fun.
Okay.
I attend all the CCWD meetings, so.
Okay, looking forward.
That does sound like John's kind of fun.
Yes, it is.
Bill won't be going alone. I will be accompanying him to any Aqua events as I'm a regular attendance there.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah, no, that'll be good. Okay, so let's get through the rest of these. Thank you all for volunteering for things so far. Budget and finance. We no longer have Jim on budget and finance, but Peter has to be on there. Who's the other? Peter, do you want to put the finger on somebody of who you'd like to work with on this, or does anybody feel strongly about volunteering?
I I think I would enjoy working with Catherine on this committee.
I would love to work with you, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to Personnel Committee.
And Peter, I will mention I am now the treasurer for the Harbor District. And they're doing some interesting things. So I'd love to have you come along and talk to Julie, who's in charge of that. I think there's some things that I'm not asking for change, but just some different ways of managing things since they're a much bigger district. They're fascinating.
Okay, let's go to personnel. We still have quite a few to do. See if we can get through these a little quicker. Personnel, Catherine, you want to stay on personnel?
Yep.
And I don't think I'm active on any committees. How about if I join you on personnel?
Please.
Okay. Recycling and solid waste. That was Catherine and Jim. That's now going to be, we got at least one seat.
Let's have Catherine and Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, this is a harmless committee.
Sure.
The contract is written. Again, it's actually one of our more critical functions. And before Chris retires from Recology, I'd love for you to come up and find out more about Recology. She knows that thing so inside out, and the whole waste business is fascinating.
I think she might have been the person I had a long conversation with a couple years ago when my recycling kept getting rejected for one strange thing after another in it.
That would have been Chris.
Okay, yeah, she said she was super proud of having the lowest rejection rate of recycling anywhere in the county, something like that.
And we have one of the highest recycling rates of anywhere in the county.
I'm gonna move us back to the next item. We got outreach and newsletter. That was Catherine and Peter. Any sense of needing to change that?
I'm perfectly willing to continue there.
Bill,
is that only two people? Because the concepts of outreach are close to me.
Oh, well, I don't mind giving it up either.
Well, my question was, if it's only two people, then it would be you versus me, and I'm the one who doesn't know anything. But if it's like an infinite number of people, I could be in it.
No, the committees need to be less than a quorum, so that's two. That doesn't mean that we can't have some good discussion about things the committee wants to recommend at the board level, and so we'll have the opportunity to participate. Legislative. This has been Catherine's wheelhouse for quite a while. I joined you in that some, but you've been carrying that. Any cause for change this time?
No.
All right. I mean, we can always pull people in. One thing about committees, one of the responsibilities of the president is to make appointments, especially to ad hoc committees, and that can be done at any time if we need to. So this just sets the year. We typically are not making changes throughout the year, but sometimes we'll stand up a whole new committee because we need to. Okay. Strategic plan progress. That's actually a tongue twister. That has Catherine and Peter.
I would propose we leave that the same.
All right. Connect the Coast, Catherine and Peter again.
Yeah, and
are we still active with this one?
I haven't been active with it, but with this Valimar deal, we've got to make sure that we're connecting with whatever road changes they're doing, because we have an opportunity here.
Yeah,
this will come up, and the county may set the timeline and bring information.
You know, things like roundabouts and easements and such. This could be really critical.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and then the final one, Recology in Pillar Ridge. Catherine, I would like to join you on. Well, This was ad hoc for a recology situation at Pillar Ridge.
I think
I'd
it's
like to
been
continue
settled.
this one, and I'd like to join you on that one.
Please.
Okay, now the $1 million question, Tracy. By any chance, did you capture all these things? I forgot to ask before we started.
Yes, do you want me to read what I have?
Yeah, that would be terrific.
Okay, so for budget and finance, I have Peter and Catherine. Personnel, Catherine and Scott. For the ad hoc committees, recycling, solid waste, Catherine and Bill. Outreach newsletter, Catherine and Peter. Legislative, Catherine. Strategic plan progress, Catherine and Peter. Connect the Coast, Catherine and Peter. Recology, Pillar Ridge, Catherine and Scott. Is that correct?
I think so. Anyone noticed anything? Okay. Let's get a motion and a second and ratify this one. Some of these positions need board action to make official.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Peter. Bill, you can practice the cudgel here with a second. I hear Bill with a second here. Okay, Tracy, if we could have a roll call, please.
Okay. Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes.
Director Sofkey?
Aye.
All right. The motion passes. Thank you all. This is always a really interesting one, and never quite sure how that's going to go. And I just really appreciate the collegial work to get through this. And I look forward to it. It's a good reminder of all the different streams of work that we have going on. Okay, let's go to item 7, review and possible action concerning the request for proposal for auditing services.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. First, I want to thank Peter Medina for sitting in this meeting and waiting for so long until this item comes up. Second, I want to just briefly share a bit of background why we're looking at this and what this is about. So our treasurer has at multiple occasions, essentially asked, why are we staying with the same auditor for a very long time? We've been very, ID Bailey and what was their prior name? They had a prior name. VTD, yes, VTD. So they went through a number of name changes. All of this is perfectly legal because the principles have changed in accordance with the rhythm that we have to essentially change auditors. So the auditor itself changed, but we didn't change the firm. So we have a long history with this firm. However, the world of auditors is a bit affected. I'm thinking it has really to do with the pandemic. It is a very, not a very thankful job to have. It's, I think, very difficult. And we see that auditors go through a high staff turnover. And this affects also ID Bailey. This time around, we did get a call from them and essentially acknowledging that they haven't really increased our prices since quite some time. So we are receiving a very fair price from them for their auditing service. However, they essentially told us early in the process, before we signed the agreement, before I signed the engagement letter with them, that they will not be able to provide the same services to us this year around, meaning the timeline is different. We usually ask in our contract that we receive the audit by December 15. December 15 has passed. It was made very clear that their timeline this year is essentially to get this service completed in March. So we're looking at a significant delay in the receipt of our audit. And with that phone call, I and knowing that Peter Decker has really an interest in refreshing this procedure and this review, we stuck our heads together, Peter Medina, Peter Decker, and I, and came to the conclusion that it would be the right time to go out for an RFP this time around. Now, before I let Peter Medina tell us what's in the RFP, I want to say there is some timelines that we have to probably revise because we didn't get this done in January 5, but it shouldn't affect really when we receive the proposals back. With that, I want to hand it to you, Peter Medina, if you can just please fill in the gaps that I left out.
No, really nothing to add there. Clemens really captured all of it. We've been with Ide Bailey, formerly BTD, for a number of years since I've been with you guys. This is back since 2013. And yes, the principle has changed every 6 years as prescribed by the SCO. So yeah, our RFP is really asking for independent audit service for financial statement audit on an annual basis, as well as providing the management letter and review of internal controls, and a possible Yellow Book audit, which would include which is the single audit for federal grants over $750,000, which we haven't had in a number of years. But that's what we're requesting. We're going to, as Glenn said, revise the timeline a little bit. I have some ideas. We'll get our heads together probably within the next couple of days to figure out what days are going to change. But we have a set date that I don't really want to change of April 3rd for the proposal due date. So we should have this process wrapped up before the end of the fiscal year, which I think is going to work well for us, as opposed to pushing it out any further to a next fiscal year, when things will don't usually not a good view from qualified firms toward districts that wait that long. So I think we're still in that range of having it be, we're going to get qualified bidders. That's it.
So the recommendation is to authorize the distribution of the RFP.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Peter. And a second? Can't hear you, Catherine.
I will second that.
Thank you. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm doing everything I can to avoid saying you're on mute.
I appreciate that.
What's a Zoom call without that a few times? All right. Tracy, could we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Slater-Carter?
Yes.
Director Sapke?
Aye.
All right. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Now let's go to item 8, review and possible action concerning changes to AB 361 and transition to in-person meetings.
Yeah, so bottom line is that after February 28, 2023, a quorum of the board is required to meet in person in the district. Legal counsel prepared actually excellent memorandum that lays out the detail of that. And when that is also going to change, if all remains at current status, I do want to say that it is going to be difficult for us to find a different boardroom because, of course, the meeting location has to be within the district, and there is not many possibilities. Our current boardroom is relatively small. So I actually had an opportunity to go a walk in with Bill, and Bill got a chance to take a look at this as well, and probably has some recommendations. Most agencies go towards hybrid meetings. And there is a number of reasons, and Catherine touched on some of those reasons. One of them is that we've really seen an increase in public participation since it is very easy to log on and listen and possibly to contribute. So a hybrid meeting would be essentially allowing the public and others, potentially consultants and staff, to attend the meeting virtually. The other advantage that I'm seeing in hybrid meetings is that consultants that attend virtually, we don't have to pay essentially for travel time. And I'm certainly going to have a discussion on how big of an advantage that is. Sometimes we, so in any case, with that, I'm going to hand the discussion to the board. We do have time until February 28th, so we should have 2 more meetings if we really need to further discuss this.
I'm just going to add a little bit to your comments about the consultants. Many times we need consultants late into the evening, and we bring them in from some distance. So I can't tell you how many meetings I've been in where we finish up and then I realize one or more of our consultants has a long drive ahead late at night. And bringing them in this way is, I think it's been a real benefit for them, for their safety and getting a little more rest. So just on that angle, which I hope is not terribly controversial at all about the consultants, I think there's definitely benefit in the direction of hybrid especially for that. So now I see Bill has his hand raised.
I do want to just, I forgot to mention something that I think is important here. I did have a conversation today with Jason from PCT. I think they are, of course, also playing an important role here. How is this really broadcast? And so I think they are capable of handling the situation, a hybrid meeting with the equipment that we currently have in the boardroom, the microphones, and all that is needed would be an additional screen. We already have a big screen TV in there that would perfectly serve that purpose. Thanks.
All right, let's start with Bill.
Thanks. So rather than speak to what the answer should be, which is never my expertise, I'll just say the 3 different scientific questions which are involved in how to resolve it. So the first and simplest is how to make the current boardroom essentially safe for spreading respiratory pathogens. And Clements and I walked through it, and it's essentially a matter of properly ventilating it, which can be done with fans, and monitoring the airflow, which can be done with carbon dioxide meters to make sure you aren't actually breathing rebreathed air, and maybe some sort of little tracers like incense sticks so that everybody in the room can see how the air is moving. So first question is air.
I'm sorry, Bill. I get massive headaches from incense sticks and smoke.
Fine. Details can be changed.
My
point is there are 3 questions. One is how to run hybrid meetings. One is how to manage airflow. And one is how to make sure trust isn't completely undermined. And so the airflow thing is a scientifically locked down thing. CO2 monitoring is one of the reasons Japan didn't have much of a COVID thing. So monitoring CO2 to make sure you don't have rebreathed air, to have fans, heaters if necessary, it can be absolutely done. It's not even very expensive. So just set that aside. We just do it. The next thing, how to run hybrid meetings. It turns out that there are ways to ensure microphone quality, video quality, camera angles, and things like that, which allow people who want to see what's going on and hear what's going on to essentially see and hear it, even if the people in the meeting can't see and hear them that well. That's sort of what public participation usually is. The third question is the trust establishment among the people in the room who are making the decisions. That's where I'm putting most of my effort, because as I understand scientifically, in exactly the same level of confidence that all of us understand that water quality is a real thing and it's not just made up, neuromechanical trust is a real thing and it's not just made up. And it only develops in person in 3 space. Our brains are 3-dimensional things. That's the reason we understand the 3-dimensional world so well. So when another human being is in our proximity, we have the full bandwidth of their micro expressions and their vocal inflection and their timing latency, all of the real subtle things which let us know that we're dealing with humans and how they're working. It only works in 3 dimensions. Zoom is an approximation for content. We can get the words, we can get some approximation of the and so forth, but it doesn't work at all for trust. Zoom is only about content, 0 trust. I'll give you the numbers if you want. So my agenda for this is to make sure the board members, in the vast majority, most of the time, are in 3 space, with obvious exceptions now and again. That's not a problem. But the mass of board interaction be in 3 space. Public are welcome to come in, sort of teleporting from outside. And the room itself in which we are is so drastically and scientifically verified to be safe that nobody worries about it. Those are my points. Thanks.
All right. You didn't mention filtration. I'm not going into a room that's not undergoing filtration.
Well, actually, I was thinking of piping in fresh air from outside, which is even better than filtered. So I don't see why you'd want to filter on top of that.
Filtering very clean air, your filters don't wear out very fast. But should there be any eddies or stale air, filters can do. It's belt and suspenders. You saw the SAM plant. How many settling pond stages did we have? How many screening stages do we have? It's just a matter of driving the numbers small enough to the point of insignificance.
Well, absolutely, yes, that's the point.
So I think there's some work to be done on taking some ideas and trying to boil them down to actual plan that we can put into place. As Clemens pointed out, we've got some time. I'm particularly interested, I'm going to describe our boardroom as cozy. And cozy is not where I want to be at a time where we need to get just a little bit of distance. And even with good air exchange, if I'm too close to someone, you can't move enough air to keep that from potentially having impact.
Is that a scientific statement?
Some of the research looking at how little contact and how little exposure with someone who was at a highly transmissive stage in the disease shows very, very short contact and pretty clearly determined that was the individual contact that did the transmission. So I'm not ready to be a lab experiment. And nor am I ready to put my family through that as well, if absent need. So, you talk about establishing trust. Some of that's going to be listening to and extending some allowance for other people having also put a whole lot of energy into learning a lot of the science of what's going on here. And Bill, just so you know, I'm a trained scientist as well. I'm also an engineer, and you'll hear me express things. I want you to understand there's some background there, and I welcome what you're bringing, and I want you to understand I operate in that space too.
Good. All right. So to make it simpler, since we're both invoking engineering principles, I propose you and I meet somewhere with as much airflow as you want, and we will agree in technical terms what's going on, because engineers don't wind up disagreeing in the long term as long as there are technical issues involved. We can measure them and we can agree.
Yeah, I'm interested in providing a safe place to meet. I'm interested in looking at alternate venues. I know there's a limited number, but I want to spend a little time running through the few that we might explore. me go to Greg. I've got a little more to say on that, but let's go to Greg.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we got the equipment for hybrid meetings, which involves a large screen and speakers so that the board can see the people who are remote, and cameras, of course, are focused on the board. So it's a little bit fragmented, but it's about the same as having a big Zoom meeting. Separately, you may recall I wrote a bunch of articles about COVID with some colleagues I went to school with. And I'm in possession of a model for estimating the transmission probabilities given circulation room characteristics. If you'd like, I can forward it to the board and you guys can decide how to use it to sensitivity and analyze the conditions where you are and the probability of exchange. My big issue was always the compound probability issue, that even if you're 99% safe in your first meeting, by the time you're in your 12th meeting, you know, the probability of getting transmitted is pretty significant, assuming somebody in the audience has a disease. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, Biden just extended the emergency to April. So that's a national news bite. I don't know if that's going to affect us all racing around by the end of February, but I just thought I'd mention that. Thanks.
Christine, I'm looking at your expression. That sounds like maybe something to look into.
Unfortunately,
you already have a read on that?
Yeah, the statute's pretty clear. It has to be a state of emergency, I believe, declared by the state of California. But you know what? I'm going to double check that.
Okay, that's good. We just want to know. I think, Bill, you proposed an exercise that I actually think there's a different exercise that's going to be more productive, and that's spending a little time getting down to brass tacks about where we might meet and the specifics of what we need to provide for it. And I think you listed off a few things. I added in filters. I want as many cubic feet of air in the place as we can manage with a setup that allows for good air exchange. We can almost certainly accomplish that in the current boardroom, but it is a very small boardroom, and a few fans and filters and the big TV and the limited seating that we have will be limited further. So I'd like to spend a little time with the Clemens to explore a few ideas to see if they're viable at all. And as you mentioned, it has to be somewhere in the district, but I don't know. We've been pretty inventive.
So may I ask?
A good time to go see if we can find a bigger space.
The parts. So the concern for safety, everybody has, and so I'm sure that nobody's expecting that I want to do anything unsafe. I'm more of a scientist than anybody. Just look at my track record. So the question is, do you guys know about carbon dioxide monitoring and how to use it? Because if you don't, then okay. So what carbon dioxide levels would you regard as safe in the room, roughly?
I would refer to some of the guidance that I'm not too worried about the specific number. I know there's guidance from a few organizations that I respect, and I would go review those. I will say that CO2 monitoring does not give you a direct indication of the presence or absence of the virus.
It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to.
Well, okay, Bill, we're not going to have a pseudoscientific debate by Zoom tonight. What we're talking about is finding a practical way forward for this board to conduct meetings according to the laws that we have to operate under.
Perfect.
So I'm proposing that at least I welcome any other member that wants to work with Clemens in a committee style to go take the bull by the horns and identify location and accommodations and things that we can bring back as one or more proposals to the board.
Perfect.
I see your hand, and then to Catherine, and then back to Bill on that.
I wanted to go on, Clemens.
Thanks, Catherine. I just wanted to say there's two more things that I thought about that could help essentially make our boardroom a little less cozy, Scott. And the first one would be to change the T configuration that we currently have for the tables where directors and staff sit to a U configuration exclusively for board members. We can have staff walk up to the microphone, for example, or sit separately. And the second is that there is a way to increase the volume of the room by taking out a weight-bearing wall to our small room. I mean, it is tiny, that is alongside the entrance to the boardroom. Just saying that those are also thoughts that ran through my head when I was talking this through with Bill.
You didn't mention taking out the stairs. That would give us some room. Not all suggestions are practical, I guess.
Right. The hallway, just take it in as well.
Yeah, nobody uses that anyway. Catherine?
Actually, yeah, the configuration of that little building is, what about the garages? What about the garage?
Garages are rented out.
They are rented out. Darn. Okay. Yes. There's always the parking lot. And we could all just dress heavily.
By the way, at the beginning of COVID, my wife and I started going to the church in Half Moon Bay, which had a tent outside. The Catholic Church during COVID just made a giant outdoor structure and had services outdoors for a year and a half. So worst case, we could put a little, gazebo or something. If people are really afraid of airflow in the room, we could go outside and do it that way.
I had just written down tent and parking lot.
But honestly, I think
this is what I'm talking about. Is if we spend a little bit of time thinking through some options, I bet we're going to. I mean, we can do things to try to squeeze a little more space into the current venue that we have. We haven't had. We have had previously. We've had meetings where we knew we were going to have a big audience, and so we've done things at the Cypress Inn. We've done things at the Pill Ridge Community Room. We've done things at Seton Coastside, and we've done things at Farallon View School. Each of those comes with complications. I'm not saying it's an easy, clear choice, but I think my point is we've been a creative lot. We'll continue to be a creative lot, but we just need to sit down and spend some time and run through these. And, honestly, see if anything else comes to mind. I think the tent idea is one, we've also seen that work really well down at the harbor for some outdoor meetings there as well, both at the brewery and there at the hotel.
What I'm thinking of, Scott, just to be real quick, is that not canvas, that's noisy, but we've all driven up the highway, Clemens and I particularly. Caltrans uses some hard-sided, dome-shaped structures that last for years and years, and it's something we might want to explore at one end of the parking lot.
Are they yurts? Because I've always wanted to.
Their yurts tend to be canvas or skin. These are like a hard fiberglass, but they're temporary.
I may have to hold out for a yurt.
Well, okay. I have a favor to ask, and that is, I'm going to have to sign off. I've had a migraine for 3 days, and it's not because of this meeting. It's because I got some really bright lights flashed in my eyes this afternoon while I was out, and it's coming back. So
okay, well, let me put a wrap on this and say, Clemens, what I'd like to do. I work here in town on Mondays and Fridays, so I could, if we could arrange a time. And Bill, do you want to maybe join us and we could kick around some ideas?
Sure. Yes, in principle. When in specific?
don't know. I need to look at my calendar, but.
All right. We'll schedule it by email.
If we could offline pick a time and.
Beautiful.
We'll do that later to try to put a wrap on it quickly for Catherine. Catherine, when you step out, we'll still have a quorum and that'll let us do our reports and closed session items.
Yes,
but I
yes,
certainly
yes.
understand. And please, hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. It will go away. It's like the storms. They just go away.
Okay. Oh, I got to get back to my agenda. Okay. Well, if we're okay, let's move on then to reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side. Do we want to report or anything, or just?
I just wanted to report on the meeting of the Finance Committee, where I was an observer. The Finance Committee tried to put a number on the cost of replacing the line that goes from here to the plant, and what was the immediate result was that it was clear that the numbers were missing. There was no ballpark estimate on how much that would be versus how many feet there would have to be replaced. So it was necessary, and it proved necessary in that meeting to study the situation some more and come up with some ballpark numbers that would allow us to make a way better decision on what the next step forward should be. That was what was discussed in the SAM meeting.
That strikes me as a little odd, given all of the engineering work that's been done to inform the CIP.
That engineering work is not finished. And
well, no, Peter, this was actually designed and funded at one point in time. And Clemens, you can go into more detail on that. But the necessity for this has been known since 2009. And there was actually a portion of it approved, or if not the portion, the whole thing approved by the SAM board. And then things got in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm expressing interest. That it's kind of an interesting thing to say that we don't know when. I mean, we do have old numbers, but we do have not just how many feet are involved, but prioritized lists of things that need work. Certainly, if you were to ask Pippin, he could. I don't think he'd have to do a whole lot of research to start giving you very useful information.
He's right here.
I think we just.
Hello, Pippin.
Sorry.
I think this would be a great side conversation with Peter and Pippin. I want to try to get us through the rest of the night here. We've still got a lot to do, and we still have a closed session as well.
By the way, may I ask how much longer? I've never been on a Zoom meeting for more than 2 hours without a break. We're now hit past 2.5.
Yeah. That's we typically take a short break before we go into closed session, and we try to keep the meetings. This has been a pretty full agenda, so let me see what we can do to get through this. Mid-Coast Community Council.
So I already mentioned the Brown Act attendance issue and whether or not Biden's extension is going to affect things. I made a presentation on concerns and potential action items on the storm. I believe I emailed everyone on your council a copy of those slides. Also wrote an article on Buzz with that slideshow. Two things I think are important. One is that Mueller said at our call that he was going to find a way to gather damage information in our area so we could escalate our ability to get FEMA funds. Apparently there were 2 tranches of FEMA funds that were going after. We qualified for the first, we didn't for the second because we didn't have enough damage. And of course we weren't reporting damage because none of us were connected. So he has provided an online site that came out in an email just before, during this meeting. If you don't have an SMC, okay, as long as you got it. Plus, it's also in the article that I put in Coastside Buzz. I put in a screenshot you can click on and a link to the site. So it's important for us to all register our problems to try and qualify for FEMA money. And then I think the major thing is that Ray announced FRISP, Coastside Resilient Infrastructure Strategic Plan. which really means, I think, that he and hopefully the rest of the Board of Supervisors are going to pay attention to the infrastructure needs over here, and we better start listing them. So, I encourage you, I'll be happy to cooperate, Sam, every agency out here, to start thinking about the infrastructure, whether it's internet, electrical, sewer, water, whatever, what our needs are, and get them into, just like we did for the local hazard mitigation plan, but get them into an organized list maintained by Ray's office. And that's it for me. Thank you. Unless there's any questions.
Terrific. Thank you, Greg. You didn't mention phone, and that's been something I've been talking to AT&T and T-Mobile. I know a number of people have been getting into each of these areas.
It's on my list. I didn't say it.
All right. Let's see. CSDA and LAFCO reports. We've got those in written form on the agenda on the website.
I was going to mention, so there was actually a LAFCO meeting yesterday. So at the preparation of the report, when we had Rick's report, there was no meeting, but yesterday was a meeting. So we'll find out what happened and provide that information at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Christine, attorney's report.
Thank you. I have no report. I will quickly, though, just take this opportunity to make a comment for the record, although I think, Catherine, you probably will not be attending closed session, but
I think I'm not going to, but you can make the comment.
Thank you. Well, you would not be attending. You'll be recusing yourself from the real property item for 77 Hart Street due to your conflict of interest.
All right.
That's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any director's reports? General manager's report?
No additional report.
Okay. We will have a brief recess. We'll thank the public for being here, for watching online and participating. We always value your participation, and it's been great having more people in the meetings. I've done a lot of meetings, but the last how long has the last year been? This period where we've been doing it this way, I've really appreciated the additional participation. It's terrific. In closed session, we'll be dealing with existing litigation on the Half Moon Bay suing its neighbors case, a couple of potential cases of anticipated litigation, and then real property negotiation on 770 Hart here in Montara and 771 Rivera here in Montara. We'll take up an issue, the item of public employee performance evaluation, and then conference with labor negotiators on the unrepresented employee, the general manager. If we take any action in closed session, we'll report that out, and that will make it into the minutes. And with that, it has been. Let's take a 10-minute recess. Reconvene at 10:20. And again, thank you to the public. Thank you to PCT. Thank you, Michelle, for being here, and bid you all a good night, and see the rest of you in closed session in 10 minutes.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you.